Welcome to I Could Talk to You All Day. I'm Lauren Lefkowitz, recovering workaholic, perfectionist, and people pleaser.
And I'm John Spears, emerging from playing small, getting caught up in the inertia of life, and always being on.
I Could Talk to You All Day is a show for executives and emerging leaders. This is not just another leadership podcast. We're here to talk about what it means to be a leader while also being human.
So join us for raw, vulnerable, and probably pretty funny conversations about shifting from surviving at work and home to thriving in the life you've always wanted. Let's get the conversation started. Lauren Lefkowitz.
John Spears.
How are you doing today?
Things are looking up.
Things are looking up. I like that. I like when things are looking up.
I had a funny morning this morning.
Oh, did you?
I took Puppy to the vet to get her teeth cleaned, and she was very sad, and I was sad to leave her. So on the way home, I treated myself to breakfast, and I stopped at a bagel shop. I ordered online before I got there so that it would be ready when I got there. And it was taking a while. And so I went up to the register because they hadn't called out my number. And I said, "Hey, can you check on my order?" And she said, she looked at the number and she said, "Are you Lauren?" And I said, "Yep." And she said, "I think she's walking out with your order." And so there was a woman walking out with my bag, which, like, mistakes happen, right? So I said, "Oh, excuse me, I think you have my order." And she turned around and she looked at the bag and she looked at me and she said, "Oh, are you Lauren?" And I said, "I am." And she handed me the bag and walked out. Like she had just come in to take somebody's bagel.
Whoa.
She didn't like go back in and ask for her order. She just like came in, went up to the rack of orders waiting to be picked up and picked up something that looked good.
That is crazy.
Like, bacon, egg, and cheese on an everything bagel is delicious. So of course you picked mine.
Super delicious.
But she just came in to take a sandwich. What? Who does that? That's, I mean, clever. I don't have a criminal mind. That would not occur to me.
I've never thought about doing that.
But I guess you can just this is not an idea, listeners. But like, I guess you just can walk into a place that has like a pickup shelf and don't do that.
I mean, it's called stealing, I think.
I think it's theft. Yeah.
Theft.
Yeah, that's
armed robbery.
Armed robbery. Armed with an idea, this woman walked into the bagel shop and took my bagel, but she did not get away with it.
Huh.
So now I feel like some sort of hero for stopping a crime.
Committed against you.
Committed against me. And
you're your
bagel.
Own hero. You are your own hero.
I am my own hero. Yes. Yes.
That's not what we're talking about. But that's a really good lesson for us to learn.
That is a really good lesson for us.
I have this habit. I don't even know where it comes from. I do know where it comes from. Of like wanting someone else to save me, like wanting someone else to just like make it all better, and feeling really stuck or like really victim-y. I mean, this gets really when in my like, oh, all this stuff is happening to me and I'm overwhelmed and I can't. That's like a very popular refrain for me in my kind of everyday, not every day, but in the pattern that I'm breaking away from. Of this, like, where's my knight in shining armor to come save me? It's like, look in the mirror. It's you. You are the thing that's going to save you. No one is coming to save you. No one is coming to like sweep you off of this ledge to like make everything better. Like, it's you. You are your own hero. I love that.
And frankly, if somebody came in right now and was like, "I'm going to fix everything for you. Here's how it's going to go," I would probably be like, "No, that's not the way I want it."
I want your help, but on my terms.
I want you to fix it for me in exactly the way I would fix it for myself, but I'm not doing it.
Yeah. All right. Before we dive into our topic, I think we've played this game before on our show, but I'm not sure. We've definitely done this in our coaching collective that we're a part of. It's the "if you really knew me" question.
We did that 2 episodes ago.
Okay, well then let's do it again because I really like this game and I want to see what happens with it today.
Okay, count me in.
I love how you remember that. I'm like, my memory is so off. Like, I'm like, did that happen
weirdly accurate.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah.
Okay. I think it's like age and COVID. I think those are the two things that are really like chipping away at it slowly but surely. Okay. Here you go. You can start. If you really knew me.
If you really knew me, wow, my brain just went like totally blank. Isn't that funny?
Your
Like
memory is really good, Lauren. It's
you're
like
not going to know me.
spectacular.
I'm not here for you to know me. Is sort of what
Oh,
my brain said. Yeah. Okay. So here we
oh.
go.
What's that about?
I don't know. Shyness. I don't know. Fear. All the things. Shy.
I'm
Your
looking at Lauren
face
with a
when I
very.
said shyness. I was actually a really shy kid.
So was I.
Yeah. Okay. If you really knew me, you might be surprised to know how much I sleep.
Mm. If you really knew me, you would know that I love cream soda. Like I love it so much. And I was in the grocery store the other day getting some caffeine-free Diet Coke for my son. And I saw this, and I'm holding up the can now, Lauren, for you to see it, this Diet Dr. Pepper and cream soda mix. And I was like, I have to get that. I don't even love Dr. Pepper, but I love cream soda so much that I was like, zero sugar, filled with all these other chemicals that are going to hurt my body, but like it's zero sugar. Let's do it. And I probably had 4 of them yesterday, and it's 10:30 in the morning, and I'm drinking another one. Good move for me. Yeah.
Good. Amazing.
Amazing.
If you really knew me, you would know that I'm a great person to take to an amusement park or a lake or really anything that requires a bunch of activity, because I will hold your stuff while you go do things. I will bring a book, I will put my headphones in, and I will gladly guard everybody's stuff while you go swimming or scuba diving or roller coastering or whatever it is that you want to do. And nobody feels bad about it, because I love to just like sit under a shady tree and read. It makes me so happy.
So the next time I go to an amusement park and go scuba diving at the amusement park, I'm going to invite you to watch my stuff.
Yeah, I would love to see you scuba dive at an amusement park. I feel like they would carry you away. Security would come over and be like, sir, this is the bottom of a water slide. We don't scuba dive here.
Can you imagine me walking through like Six Flags with like a full body wetsuit, a mask, a snorkel? Well, I guess you don't need a snorkel if you're scuba diving, a tank, like the flippers, and you're reading a book on the side of the road.
Yeah.
What's present right now? If you really knew me, you would know that I am like so many Americans right now, like super into pickleball. I am loving it. I'm finding so much joy in learning and playing and meeting new people. And as I was talking to you earlier, one of the reasons I really love it is because it's really helped me and transformed my mood. You know, this has been a rough year in a lot of different areas, and I've just been low energy. I've been kind of just, it's felt like I'm walking through wet cement a little bit. And in the last month that I've really like doubled down, I'm going like 2 to 4 times a week, playing 2 hours a day. And it's just lightened me up. And this idea of play and of just like being in something to do it for the heck of it has really just been amazing for me. All right. Thanks for entertaining me in doing this if you really knew me game. Today we're talking about self-love. And I know there are lots of people, particularly in corporate life, executives and leaders, who are like, no, I don't want to talk about that. That's like woo-woo, weird kind of stuff. And I think at some point in time, I kind of felt that way too before I began this journey. And now I would say it is probably the single most important thing in helping me to show up and be effective in my life and have meaning and purpose and fulfillment.
Kind of annoying, isn't it?
It's really annoying. Like, I don't want to love myself. I just want to like do the thing. I want to like
Right.
be a good speaker, be a good decision maker, manage people well, do really excellently in the thing that I'm good at. but not
Yeah.
self-love. I mean,
Ugh. And also falling in love with myself has been the coolest.
Tell me more.
I was, and sometimes still am, the doer. I grew up in a doing world. We were trained as students and early career to do things, to do what we're told, to react to the needs of other people. And so I grew up in this like react and respond kind of world. And I was really good at it. I remain really good at reacting and responding. It is hard to catch me off guard when it's not about me. And I thought my life's purpose was service to others, was being good at service to others. And as I developed and as I went through my own path of being coached, which took me a very long time to get to, I realized that there was like an entire chunk missing, which was the me part of it. And I had become this sort of like lump of clay that I had molded into a person who serves others. And it makes me sound robotic when I say it that way. And I wasn't. I had and still have all of this empathy and all of this care and compassion. And that's one of my better sets of qualities. But I didn't use it for myself. I used it for others. And it ended up distancing me from myself. So anytime I had downtime, I turned back to work because I loved others. I loved helping others. I loved serving others. I turned back to my friendships. Where can I support this friend or that friend or family or, volunteering or, all those kinds of things that made me feel good, but they didn't make me like me anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't interested in that because I didn't really like me. When I sat down with just me, I didn't really know what I wanted and how I wanted things to be. So the doing for others was way easier than figuring out, first of all, do I love myself? Secondly, do I want to love myself? And third, what does that even look like?
Yeah.
So when people used to say things about self-love and self-care and even wellness, it all felt like doing to me. And I'm like, oh, I'm doing all that work for others. I'm solid over here. And it didn't even occur to me that self-love was part of it.
Mm-hmm.
Was part of the path through life.
Yeah. I think me, like so many of us, have had childhood experiences that help shape us, or not help, that defined us and shaped us into who we are today and created belief systems and patterns that we carry on through life. And early on in my life, my parents got divorced. I've talked a lot about that. I'm really open about the kind of, stuff that I've experienced in childhood. And when my dad out of the blue called me and was like, call me when you're 18, and just stopped calling, it left this really big wound. Lots of stuff happened because of that. But it left me feeling like I was broken, like I wasn't good enough, like there was something fundamentally wrong with me in my mind. Even now, as a 43-year-old man, I'm like, who does that? What must be wrong with me for someone to do, for my own dad to do that? And I'm really grateful for years and years of therapy and working on myself and kind of working to heal those wounds, and coaching and self discovery and personal development have all played a role in that. But it just, all my life, I was super critical of myself. I had super high standards. I was like, I have to be perfect, because if I am not perfect, someone's going to leave. I'm not going to be good enough. And so there was this hypercritical voice that every time I made a mistake, or every time I saw myself in a way that I didn't want to see, I was just super down on myself. There was very little acceptance, very little care for myself. I could love and I can care for other people, but to really love myself and to love me exactly the way I am, to like who I was, to be okay with who I was, regardless of the numerous flaws that I have, or the anything about myself that I would, when I would compare myself, I'd be like, I wish I was like that person. And that really had, excuse me, a negative effect on how I showed up in the world, and my ability to take risks, and my ability to believe in myself, and my ability to love other people. Because if I was so hard on myself and I was so down on myself, how could I let anyone in? How can I truly be known by anyone if there were parts of my life that I was even ashamed of, that there was so much like both guilt and shame and kind of heaviness around. And so I really, even though I had lots of connections and I was close to a lot of people, I wasn't being seen and known by them. And until the payoff was no longer paying off, was no longer there around being guarded and all that, that's when I really began to make some shifts and to want to work on myself, and work on, not only work on myself, but work on loving myself and accepting myself, and not just sort of from a head place, knowing that I was good enough, knowing that I was enough, knowing that I was okay and I was lovable in my head, but really like feeling it in my body and being at peace with myself. After that, my life began to shift dramatically. My relationships deepened. I was, quote, performing better at work. I was more authentic. I was more open. I was more creative. I was taking the right kinds of risks that I needed to take to be effective in all areas of my life, as a parent, as a partner, in my job. And it's not been an easy journey. It is filled with lots of challenges and navigating who we are as humans. So when I think about my life prior to this sort of self-love discovery and this working on myself, and I think about it afterwards, total night and day. I'm available for so much more. I feel good about myself. I'm at peace with myself. And not only does that impact how I look at myself and my mood and all that stuff, it also impacts my relationship with others, how I am in the world, the impact I have. And so it's been a really, like I said before, challenging journey at times, but it is so fulfilling. And there are times when like you can't see the light. There are times when you like don't know where the end is. And for anyone else on this journey, I would encourage you to just keep on going. Like, keep on doing the work, keep on coming back to it and being persistent. Because it's like the riches on the other side are just really amazing.
I want to reflect on something you said right at the beginning of what you just said, which was when you talked about that your dad said, call me when you're 18. The first thing you said was, who does that? And the second thing you said, I wondered, what's wrong with me?
Yeah.
The fact that I wonder what's wrong with me isn't the first thing that you said is such a demonstration of self-love. That the external thing that was done to you, which was your father saying like, I'm out, call me when you're 18, was something he did. And you're right. Who freaking does that? Right? But old you, right, pre-doing the work, John, thought, what's wrong with me? What's wrong with me that my father would decide to leave me? As opposed to now you can see that was a decision he made. That was about him. That was not about you.
Totally.
And who does that to a child? Right? So there's so much in self-love that gets taken from us as we grow, as we change. It can happen in childhood. It can happen in adulthood. That makes it so that we create like laws in our head about what is. I know you love to talk about what is, because of something somebody external did or made a decision about. And so, when I talk about my early career, what was at that time was that I was really good at helping other people. So that got piled on me and I accepted it. And the external view that I took internal was, you're good at everybody else. That's your role in life. You don't have to be good at you.
Mm-hmm.
And then that sort of transformed into, there is no being good at you. You're not good at you. So go be good at other things. And I think we do that a lot in denying ourselves self-love.
Mm-hmm.
That we say, like, I'll just do the things I'm good at. And those things are things I do for other people. I see it so much, and I'm sure you do too, in the high achievers. The better you are at stuff, the more likely you are to fill your life with stuff.
Totally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So thanks for sharing those two statements in that order, which I know wasn't conscious.
Right.
But it really demonstrates, like, I'm a person who has internalized self-love, and I see that my father's decision was not about me. It was about him.
Yeah.
And, like, I mean, who does that?
I have to remind myself of that sometimes, because the wound is still there. And I think if I've learned anything the last several years, it's that those wounds don't go away completely. We gain the tools and experience and perspectives and exercise to be able to narrow down the time that those things take us out. I constantly have those thoughts. Almost every day I have a thought like that. And I no longer allow it to ruminate and to kind of play over and over and over again. And it's a thought that I recognize, and I'm able to sort of move it away quickly. And I think self-love does that. And Lauren, we've talked a lot about self-love without actually defining it or talking about what are we talking about when we say self-love? It's not, sure, there are lots of definitions out there, but I would love to hear from you. When you think about self-love, what are you saying? What do you mean when we say that?
Yeah. This is going to feel weird for me to say out loud, because I didn't live most of my life this way. And now I do. And I surprise myself by saying it every time. Self-love means putting yourself first before everything and everybody else. I immediately start arguing with myself when I say that, right? Because it feels selfish. It feels self-serving. And we have made those words negative. But selfishness and self-serving is just caring about yourself. The more you're willing to care about yourself, the more you're willing to love yourself, the more you can do good for others and not burn yourself out on what you're doing for others. Mm-hmm. Self-love does not mean I love everything about myself. I accept every single thing about myself. This is how I am, and I freaking love it. That's radical self-acceptance, and I am not there. I would like to be in robes at the top of a mountain, having people come to me for all of the answers. I do not live that life. So self-love and complete self-acceptance, I think, are two different things. And for me, I think, like, I will continue with therapy and coaching as a client for most of my life, because there are always things for me to work on. And every time I uncover a layer of something new that I accept about myself, there's like something under there that I still don't accept. And that's okay. That's all part of self-development. But self-love means I love myself anyway. I still care about me first. I still fight for me. I still take stands for me. I still think about how I want my future to be, how I want today to be, how I want to reflect on yesterday in a caring, compassionate, kind, loving way towards myself. And it also means that I stop, as much as I can, the self-hate. Right? There's inside of self-acceptance. I think people look at this as like a really binary thing. And I love looking at things in a binary way. Like, it's either on or it's off. It's right or it's wrong. I've done it or I haven't done it. I've done all or I've done nothing. Right. That is my natural default. But I think inside of self-acceptance and self-love, there are so many layers. And if you uncover one thing and you work through one thing, there's like something under that was causing that now you have to work through that. and I'm here for it. And I think my fear when I was exploring self-love, and I think I've talked about this before, was like that I would open this closet door that all the things I might love about myself would be inside of, and then I'd open it and it would be empty. There'd be nothing to love. So it was easier for me to like go external and find things and people and services to love, and not have to look at myself. But for me, self-love was exploring what's actually great about me and taking it and owning it and telling people about it. And being able to do that both in a confident way and also in a vulnerable way, like we do in these conversations, and being able to say, like, not only did I not self-love for a long time, like there were years where I just like really didn't like myself. I couldn't even say I was self-like, because I just was like, everything was just buried in my backpack of crap. I'll deal with it later. And right now I'm busy. And so, a lot of avoidance on that. So that was a definition and a half of self-love. But how would you define it?
For me, self-love is really about accepting myself for who I am. Not in the way like, oh, this is who I am and it's going to be whatever, but accepting that, and in the areas that I can work on them. It's about giving myself some grace, not having those high, unmeetable expectations that are unrealistic and that I will never meet and no one in my life will ever meet, kind of letting go of those, relinquishing self-criticism. I remember there's time I would make a mistake and be like, oh, you idiot. Like, that's not a way. I don't talk to people like that. And oftentimes we don't talk to people like that, but we talk to ourselves like that. And I think self-love is about quieting those voices of intense criticism and shame that we do for ourselves. And I think a lot of self-love for me was about forgiving myself for things I've done in the past. Like not horrible, awful things, but decisions I made or things that I could have handled better. I would carry the weight of those things from years and years and years ago into the present and into the future. And so self-love for me is really about acceptance. It's about being easy on myself, not pushing myself. I'm not saying don't do that, but being easy on myself and growth and giving myself some grace. And to your point, liking myself. I mean, I totally resonated with what you said. There were years where I just didn't even like who I was. I didn't like the thoughts I was thinking. I didn't like how I was showing up in the world. And I think having that kind of intense dislike for your own self does something to your body. It does something to your soul a little bit. And making that shift, again, like I said, had been super transformative. And so I know that we're not 100% there yet. I know that we haven't reached enlightenment and we're not on the top of a mountain in some robes. But if you were to give some thoughts or some recommendations to people out there listening who are at the beginning of their journey or who are in the middle of it or however long, what would you say some of the things that were really transformative for you in moving forward in self-love and acceptance?
So I have a thing that didn't work for me that I'm going to share, and I have a thing that does work for me.
Mm-hmm.
One thing that didn't work for me until I was ready was a gratitude practice. So there's all this talk out there about practicing gratitude and being quiet with yourself, writing it down or recording it or saying it out loud to somebody else. What are you grateful for? Every time I would say what I was grateful for, I had a but. I'm grateful that I can take care of myself, right? That was always a worry for me with chronic illness. I'm grateful that I can take care of myself, but I'm angry that I'm sick, but I'm angry that some days I have flare-ups and it's like a lost day, but I'm angry that I needed a nap today, right? So my gratitude when I was not in a place of self-love was actually like a very self-critical. I'm grateful that I have a job, but I wish I was making more money. So for me at that time, gratitude works now because I'm in a different place.
Mm-hmm.
But at the time when I started a gratitude practice, it just wasn't serving me. So if you are trying to practice gratitude and you're coming up with buts, or anything you say you're grateful for makes you feel resentful, don't continue a practice that's making you feel worse. That's one piece of advice. The other piece of advice is self-acknowledgement.
Yeah.
And that's something you and I learned together in our certification program. And it's something that I practice with every client, that at the end of our calls, I ask them, what can you acknowledge yourself for? The first answer I get for the first couple of months is always, nothing. I don't know. What do you think? We hand it off. We hand off compliments because we're not willing to acknowledge ourselves if we haven't reached perfection, if we haven't reached the top of the mountain, if we haven't accomplished a full thing. We don't look at milestones as high achievers. We look at, did I do the thing? We look at that binary. Did I do the thing or did I not do the thing? So there's a practice of self-acknowledgement. And if I were acknowledging myself on this call during this podcast, I would acknowledge myself for humor. I would acknowledge myself for vulnerability. I would acknowledge myself for being in kind conversation with you. And I would acknowledge myself for recognizing a discernment that you made. I would not have been able to do that with that grace a bunch of years ago because it just wasn't something I practiced. I might have said, I think I held up my side of the conversation. That's enough. To be able to find a thing to acknowledge yourself for and cut yourself off if you start saying but.
Yeah.
It's not a gratitude practice. It's a what have I done well, or how have I been in my being well during the thing that I've been doing? And that helps grow your confidence in who you are and what matters about like why you're in the room with people, what matters about why you show up every day in your life, in their lives, in your work life, in your family life. So I would recommend, if you're working on self-love, start with self-acknowledgement. How about you?
I just want to double tap on the acknowledgement piece. I think that is one of the things that over the past few years, as we've been coaching in coaching communities, it's so readily available. We almost always acknowledge each other for something. To your point, in clients, when I'm being coached, when I'm coaching others, I always acknowledge them. My coach acknowledges me, and that we don't get that in the world. Being acknowledged and someone saying, "Hey, I just want to acknowledge you for your optimism or how you're looking at this or your strategic thinking or whatever," is like just doesn't happen often, particularly in the workplace. And so I think getting it from yourself is really important, but also surrounding yourself with people who believe in your goodness and who love you and want the best for you and are willing to acknowledge you when just for who you are or when you do amazing things. It's also really important. So just a helpful thing for me as I think about self-love. There are three things I think about that really help me on this journey. One is to journal. When I put on paper those really intense self-critical thoughts and I read it back to me, it's like, oh, whoa, like it reading it back or saying it out loud, or writing it down, it diffuses it a bit, and it kind of speaks to me in the way that I would speak to someone else. It shows like, whoa, you're being really hard on yourself. This is like over the top. It's disproportionate to what's actually happened here. And so that awareness, being able to say it or to write it out, has been super helpful. The second thing is when I feel really self-critical, or when there's something that sort of kicks up in me and I'm beating myself up for it, or I'm having negative thoughts about myself, I always look for what's underneath that. So it's not really about, oh, I like spoke harshly to my kid today. Yes, that's a thing I need to work on and to think about, but like what was happening that caused me to do that? And so exploring some of the deeper things that are happening in my life or have happened in the past and how they're either being triggered or kicked up has helped me to understand that, like, of course I'm not perfect. Of course there are things I need to do to work on in my life. And kind of doing that exploration and creating that awareness for me has not only helped me to work on those things, but it's helped me to kind of neutralize the sting of it in my life. And the last thing I think is really, really important for me is recognizing that we all have a negativity bias, that we always, whether it's on ourselves or situationally or for other people, we are always looking at the negative part. It's built into our reptilian brains to think about all the ways things are going poorly so that we can not get eaten by the dinosaur or by the saber-toothed tiger or whatever. And so when I realized that like my brain's natural way of thinking, the sort of pattern that's instinctual to us as humans was this negativity bias, it also helped me to realize there's another way. There's a different way. And even though this is a pattern that I have and that we all have as humans, we can begin to train ourselves and to think about things from a different viewpoint. So I would say journaling, exploration, sort of what's happening below the surface, and just the awareness of negativity bias has really helped me kind of make the shift to where I am today.
The negativity bias is so real, isn't it? As much work as I've done over all of these years and as much work as I continue to do, my first thought about myself when something doesn't go the way I want it to is, what did I do wrong?
Totally.
And it, like you said earlier, it was like on a little bit of a different topic, but like the gap closes a little bit. So we're faster at catching it.
Yep.
I'm faster at catching myself, blaming myself when something doesn't go exactly the way I imagined it would go, and wondering what I should have done differently instead of acknowledging what did go well. And that's where the acknowledgement practice comes into play so much, is really being a little bit self-congratulatory. Because no matter how self-congratulatory I am or how much I acknowledge myself, what I know and what I see is there will still be people who acknowledge me much louder and much more broadly than I will acknowledge myself. So it's a continued practice, a continued elevation. But the tendency to go towards the negative, to hear the negative from other people as a self-protection is so strong. Yeah.
Totally. Lauren, I could talk to you all day about this and like a million other topics, but our time is up. Thanks for joining us in this conversation, and we're looking forward to talk to you next time.
We're so grateful you decided to be with us during this episode. Subscribe, rate, and share this podcast with your friends and colleagues, and join us next time for more Real Talk.